Okay, so actually I decided to jump into the review of the LCD2 closed from Audeze without any game plan, because that's the way I enjoy to talk about them the most, and it will be a little bit of a rambling, but I think that's the one that I enjoy the most, and I think actually you will get the most out of it as well. And here I have to actually start with a little bit of a disclaimer. Even though actually on paper, or if I actually judge it objectively, the LCD2 closed should have been exactly what I wanted. Maybe all that I thought needed fixing on the LCD2C. That's after like a few hours of using them, but having them now here for a month, things have started to go in another direction. Because, for example, the LCD2C is still the one headphone, whenever I compare headphones and check other headphones, that I get back to, and then I just kinda am stuck on it, and I forget, and actually don't really even listen to other headphones. I just keep listening on this one because it's just fitting my personal preference, my listener bias the most. And I think that's why I'm on a little bit of a high-end audiophile level disappointed by what these do for a price of around $900. Now, I don't think we really have to get into what's in the box because it's the headphone. There is a box with foam that also contains the cable. The cable is the exact same as it is on the LCD2C. I like it. I would wish for it to maybe be a half a meter longer, because whenever I do my podcast, this cable is a little bit too short where my audio interface is, and for example my headphone amp. So I like the quality, I like the flexibility, it doesn't tangle up, and it's obviously replaceable and so on. A big 1/4-inch jack, no small one, which is kind of what you would expect from a high-end headphone like this. That's pretty much already it. Now let's talk about some similarities and differences compared to the LCD2C that I own, by the way, my own. I will also give you a little bit of a comparison to the 1060C, which I actually haven't even reviewed yet. Just because whenever I own something, I kind of push that towards the back, but these ones have to go back. And I'm actually not sad about it, which like I was with the LCD2C, and that's why I actually bought the review unit. So now, as you can see, in terms of the headband, it's the same, but maybe you can actually see that the size I've set them up to is not the same anymore, because at first I used my LCD2C for months with this setting, but I noticed like after a few months this headband actually got a little bit more, maybe a little bit elongated, maybe because the way I store it on my shelf. But yeah, I had to make it smaller. And also one thing that I would have wished for, but I'm not quite sure if it would have maybe had an impact on the sound, the thickness of the pad. I said at first it's great, but now having it for a few months, it got softer and it kind of gets into, and my ears now, but it's just my right ear, which is a common thing on many headphones, now touch a little bit. It's still not enough just because the sound is great and absolutely fantastic that it really bothers me. But they did fix this, but I guess that's not just because they wanted to fix this. But the pads here, as you can see, I think it is obvious, are a little bit thicker, but they are also harder. So I think at no point in time, even if they settle, they should touch your ear at all. But one thing that we have to mention as well, because I think the headband is the best idea. I mean, if I put them on my head, it fits so perfectly, and the weight distribution, everything else. And even though, for example, the LCD2C weighs 546 grams, which is a lot and actually too much for some people, it is not for me. Obviously, you have to decide that on your own. But the LCD2 closed weighs 646, so 100 grams more, and these 100 grams definitely are noticeable. Other than that, nice build quality. I still like the industrial feel. Everything feels great, so nice and smooth. The cutout here is easily enough, and I mean big enough and thick enough. The pads, I mean, I love the memory foam and everything about them. Cables also go out in the right direction. So if I put this on, it's not quite the same feeling that I will get into in just a few seconds about the the LCD2C, but they sit great. I have to say the comfort is amazing. I still think that the weight distribution feels so good that it never feels wrong. It sits very securely, especially for its weight and due to those thick pads and so on. Everything is great, but I have to say the longer I use them, I actually notice that my head gets heavy. And even though it's maybe just 100 grams less on the LCD2C, whenever I still, after owning them for over 6 months, if I put these on, there is this feeling, and I'm not quite sure why the leather actually feels a little bit colder, but these feel just right. Like I said, I had to adjust them and my ear touches a little bit, so I would maybe wish for the pads to be a little bit thicker, which could have had an impact on the Soundstage, or to be a little bit stiffer. but I'm not really gonna complain about it because even though they are heavy, they never bother me in terms of weight at all, which is the thing. And also, as you can see here, the 1060, sorry, I'm messing up with 1060. The LCD2 closed look massive, those look big, and I think this just looks so much more subtle. Obviously, we don't have the enclosure, but in comparison, for example, with now these are the 1060s. You can see this looks pretty much the same, yeah, plus the absolutely crappy headband. But that's it about that. Now, what they do pretty well, even though not actually extremely well, is isolation, because I actually on other headphones that are closed don't really hear myself any different, so it's good. Isolation is okay. The leakage is though strong, so not a lot, I mean, because yeah, there is a lot of surrounding to that. But in the end, I have to say, I love the comfort, and it will be a great comfort for a long time. The weight distribution is great, but it's heavy. That's pretty much the only thing that I could give it a bad knockoff for. Now, how easy are they to power? Not that easy, but pretty much on par with the LCD2C. It felt like maybe 2% that they needed more if I would check that properly, but yeah, that's fine. The 1060C need like 10% less, at least 10 on my volume scale. About Soundstage and about the sound signature and everything else. Soundstage is actually, for a closed back headphone, pretty wide. But it definitely still does not feel open. After all, it is a closed headphone and you feel it being wide, but you also feel it being closed down. Even though I have to say, the imaging, I was not impressed, because especially when I did my gaming test to see which one works how good for games, almost too wide of a soundstage, and the imaging wasn't precise enough, especially when I played shooters. I couldn't actually really locate where everything is going on, really, because I kind of got a glimpse, yeah, it's somewhere supposed to be there, and was actually riffed. So here, for example, something like a Sennheiser 580X, 58X, or the Biodynamics, or even an LCD2C makes a way better job. The 1060C maybe not so much, but like I said, you get a wide soundstage if you like that, but the imaging, I would have expected actually more. Now, when it comes to the sound signature, I have to say this. I thought what I thought back then wrong or needed fixing on the LCD2C, which was a little bit maybe some brightness that I back then wanted to, is what they fixed with the LCD2 closed. Now I see things different, because therefore you need a reference to know that the sound signature is still on the LCD2C my favorite one. Yes, they push the mids quite a lot. The vocals are, in my opinion, very intimate, very close, and very much in your face. But for my music, for metal, and pretty much everything else though, for ballads, for orchestras, for even electronic music, it still works great. But for all those that I've mentioned before, works so brilliantly for my taste. But if I see it objectively, what did these do? They are actually, what I did not expect, very neutral, very accurate, and actually even quite flat. And that is the weird thing, because if I personally would be looking for an LCD2, or I mean an LCD headphone in general, because I've tried all of them, usually the open version, not really reviewed more than the LCD-X, okay, the EL8s and the LCD2C, but those always had something unique. The LCD2C, the mids, the LCD-X had this, for certain type of music, amazing, epic sound that I've not heard before anywhere else, and the rest was still very good, but there was something that he made absolutely special. The EL8s also in some way had it, but the LCD2 closed kind of misses that. It does everything very good, but nothing that really gives me goosebumps like some other headphones do, or gives me this kind of special feeling, this warmth, or whatever, or just want to sleep, or just want to chill. They are missing this, because they are, you could use these for mixing. These are so accurate. Even though I have to say, when it comes to the sound qualities itself, the bass, I'm not sure if I should love it or not, because usually I love planar magnetic bass, because it's fast, it's responsive, it gives you this something special that, for example, especially the 1060C do give you already for about a third of the price, and the LCD2C does give you that, and the 1060, the normals, and all the other planars that I've reviewed. I'm not quite getting that from the LCD2 closed, because the bass, I would have to say, is ever so slightly pushed in the mid-bass range, ever so slightly emphasized, but it kind of misses an impact, it kind of misses a punch. It's a little bit soft, and I've noticed this on certain tracks where other headphones give me this nice punchy pump. Here it was like more a poof. It was odd. Also, especially the sub bass was very, very subtle. I mean, it extends very well, but not with a lot of force behind it. So I actually said this in my RHA MA750 wireless review that if the bass is actually subtle as an amazing supporting character, it can be amazing. But this is not quite what I'm getting here. So I know this is all, and I've said it already in the beginning, complaining on a very high level. And just because it's not quite my signature, I won't really knock it for it. But I'm just trying to explain you why, for some reason, these leave me wanting for something different. Now, mids and vocals sound really nice, but they are also a little bit far away. And what I've noticed, especially in the vocal range, in some certain areas, there are some dips, which are especially noticeable on vocals from males, that it sounds a little bit thin. So some certain male vocals sound amazing, actually sound really nice and deep, but not quite with the body to it like a 1060C, not with the body like a 580X or an LCD2C. They felt a little bit thinner, but it was mostly the vocal range and the mid-bass range, or I mean closer towards the mids. The highs, really nice, because clarity, details, and it's there, and it's not really giving you this open airy feel, but a wide soundstage with everything else, and it's not ever really sharp. There is a little bit minimal sibilance, but not anything that I will ever say it's too harsh or anything like that. And I mean, vocals, they don't definitely stand out nearly as much as on the LCD2C, which is why I love them LCD2C so much, and these ones maybe quite not that much, because everything here is on one line, which is what most people prefer, but it also kind of does isolate the vocals enough from the instruments, but without the specialty. I mean, I'm not quite sure how I should put it. Electro music with a lot of bass and so on works okay, but didn't really blow me away. There was this little bit of warmth that I know from Audeze headphones that I'm missing a little bit, because it almost sounds too natural, too accurate, too flat, which for some people, like for example me, sounds a little bit boring at times. So that's why I don't want to have it perfectly flat, unless you maybe achieve flat with something special, which is the thing missing here. So to narrow it kind of down, but I'm definitely not yet finished. If you want something accurate, if you want something very nicely balanced, if you want something high-end with a wide soundstage, even though maybe not the best imaging, kind of flat, they do this on a very good level overall. But for 900 euros, dollars, I'm not looking for an LCD who does this. If I get an LCD, I want something special. If it's the bass, if it's the vocals, if it's the mid, if it's the soundstage, if it's the epicness of the LCD-X, and I'm not getting either one of this. So what I get is definitely the looks and the build quality and the design, everything. I get that. But the rest I don't know, because I've heard an LCD2, a normal one, not the LCD2C, but open back on CanJam, I think last year. And that one sounded completely different. Obviously, the closed one should sound different, which is not actually that much of a thing on some other headphones. But like I said, these two don't sound anything like that. So when it comes to the competition, I mean, still, my most preferred headphones that I've reviewed so far at least are the LCD2C, because they have something unique. They do something very different compared to many other headphones, and that's why I love them so much. For example, then, on the way other end of the price spectrum, at about 150 euros, you can get the Sennheiser 580X that are pretty much the 660S. And I like what they do as well, because also they have something very unique. But if you want something like the LCD2 closed, you could save a lot of money if you actually just buy the 1060C, because these actually sound quite similar. Because, for example, the Sennheiser and the LCD2C were great for gaming. These two are actually very similar in terms of overall sound signature. But what, in my opinion, the 1060C does a little bit better, obviously not comfort and everything. I mean, if I put them on, they kind of like slung around. And no, that's not the best one. But what these do very similar is the soundstage. So it's also pretty wide, not quite as wide as on the open ones, and they still feel close. Actually, a little bit, maybe a little bit more open than the 2C, the 2 closed. Imaging, not really much better, so I wouldn't really use those for gaming either. But for music, they have this a little bit something of a warmness, even though they're also quite neutral. The bass, especially the mid bass, is a little bit more punchy. They have noticeably more sub bass, so they have this overall fuller feeling. They don't have the dips in the vocals where it feels like the voices are thinner. The vocals are way richer here, and definitely a nicer experience. Especially female vocals sound so much better. Then we have the highs that are, I would say, pretty much just as good. And now, here's the thing. I'm not a professional audio reviewer. I don't do any graphs and so on. So I don't really want to get into the details if this one maybe has a little bit more resolution or everything like that. But if I just listen to these both for hours and hours at a time with some switching in between, I don't really notice, especially not for the price difference where these cost about $330 and these cost like $900, that I miss out on any details here or that I get actually more on the LCD2 closed. So I'm just gonna say, if I would want a closed planar that is similar to an LCD, which it actually resembles more to an LCD than the actual LCD2 closed, I would just pick up these, because for the price you can't really make much wrong. I mean, obviously you won't get quite the high quality premium feel and so on, but just from a sound enjoyment, from a nicer bass standpoint, the vocals stand out. They are a little bit more isolated compared to where they are on one area with the LCD2 closed, so a little bit, but not much. And generally very, very similar. So I would say it's almost kind of refined, maybe if not quite as high quality LCD closed, because you get the punch in the bass, you get the slightly more coherent mids, you get the highs that are just as detailed, just as clear, just as sibilant, and just as much. And I actually did a little bit more of a more in-depth comparison. I'm maybe gonna get into that, but I did some notes. And for example, if I just check those notes a little bit. For the Soundstage, I said the 1060C is night and wide. The LCD2C is slightly wider. It sounds a little bit more open. Good amount of bass, where the LCD2 have slightly more bass, but not the punch. Therefore, the 1060C have a little bit more sub bass and all this, and more body to the vocals, for example. They are a little bit more intimate, better punch, better for female. Bass seems more further spread because the sounds, bass has more impact. So no, for 900, for some reason, I can't really stand fully behind those. They are too expensive for what they are. From my standpoint, that's the thing, because very neutral, very, very accurate, very nice, not colored at all. And soothing, because you can listen to these for hours and hours because nothing gets overburdened, so it's not the bass or anything, and it's very clean and very nicely balanced. But I'm not sure if I have to pay 900 to get that, and if I want to get that, because if I pay 900, I want something special, and then I'm way better off with an LCD2C, which gives me that special feel. I mean, personally, I know you shouldn't compare closed with open, but this is nothing to do with that. Just for anyone who wants a comparison, these are more comfortable. They are easier, lighter. They have a smaller soundstage, but with the imaging then is way better in my opinion. It just works better because I'm okay with this soundstage. I don't feel like this is too small. Therefore, it sounds, like I said, smaller, but open. It sounds more airy. It just is more kind of enjoyment to listen to that. And then obviously the mids and so on, and it's not for everyone, but I still love these so much. But 1060C for this price, absolutely great. So for me, it's hard to recommend those for 900, but it's super easy. Even though, I know a lot of people have an issue with these costing 800 where they were already 600. I got mine for 600 because it was a used review on it. But if I would have to pay even the normal price, 900 for the closed ones or 800 for the open ones, I would go LCD2C all the way. Yeah. Not quite sure what else to say. This is not what I expected an LCD closed to sound like. This is not what I actually expected an Audeze to sound like. Because, I have to say the EL8 also didn't really sound like an Audeze because also those were super neutral, kind of weak in terms of bass almost in some ways, which is what this one does a little bit more. Not sure what else to say. That's where I'm gonna stop it. And I hope you liked it. Maybe give it a thumbs up. And if I'm missing anything about headphone reviews, actually, if you want some specific on anything, just let me know, because I just do an experience report. Talk about things that I think are personal to know about the headphone. If I miss something that you want to know, obviously I don't measure and so on. I don't really give much about numbers and so on. It's my ears that have to feel it or don't. Bye.